for the UNX News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the UNX News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to UNX News. I'm your host, Margie K, and we have a good show for you tonight. I've got a couple of announcements to make first. First of all, the Arkansas Paranormal Expo is coming up October the 28th and 29th in Little Rock, Arkansas. And tonight, we're going to be giving away 2 tickets. They also come with a sticker. And when you get to the event, you will get 2 t-shirts. So if you want to enter that, pay attention to the show tonight. Halfway through, we're going to do a special, and some lucky person is going to get those tickets. So also, you know, XCon is coming right after the Arkansas Paranormal Expo. You can do both of them because they're not that far away from each other. XCon is going to be held October 30th through November the 1st in Springfield, Missouri. And we have got a special going on that ends at midnight tonight, everybody. 50% off tickets until midnight tonight. Use the promo code UNXSUB. And we will have other specials going on, but not one this good. So make sure you get your tickets. We've got a really, really nice full lineup for you of speakers. And Scott Walter is our keynote. You know, he's the host of America Unearthed. So we're looking forward to that. We're also doing a couple of film premieres. So you don't want to miss it. Also, UNX Magazine is published monthly and is free to UNX subscribers. You get a free subscription on the front page of unxnetwork.com, and you will get the digital. And there's also a new option for you to purchase an X Club Gold subscription for $15 a month, and you will get a lot of discounts, a lot of extra goodies, but also a printed copy of the magazine with our quarterly issues. Tonight, my guests are Bill Kuselos and Jaci Kuselos. We're going to be talking about the fact that they are phenomenology research professionals, and they investigate the correlations between post-traumatic growth and trauma across various disciplines. They authored and published the book, Bridging the Tragedy, Silver Linings in the Mysterious Ohio River Valley. It's a psychological study based on the 1967 Silver Bridge disaster that occurred in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And of course, that includes the Mothman sightings. We're definitely going to be talking about that. Bill's lifelong interest in the paranormal began in the late 70s with the original Project UFO series that aired on Sunday night television. In 2003, he was introduced to the Mothman Prophecies movie, and it changed his life. Since then, he has read nearly all of John Keel's research, as well as the works of similar authors, including Gray Barker and Andy Colvin. Since 2016, Bill and Jaci have visited Point Pleasant regularly, and they became friends with several area residents, including the late Carolin Harris, co-founder of the Mothman Festival. Bill holds a doctorate in psychology with a focus on post-traumatic growth. Jaci is a retired United States Postal Service postmaster and a current business owner. She specializes in research, data analysis, and connecting the dots between intuition, perception, and reality. And they reside in Northern Illinois. Welcome to the program, Bill and Jaci.
Hi, Margie. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on this evening. I know you guys have both been real busy, and I'm teasing Bill because he looks like he's in a dungeon in the basement, but he said that's where he belongs. So I'm glad you could join me this evening. Mothman is one of my favorite subjects because, and we've talked about this before, as you know, we had sightings reported in 2011, 2012, and that's when I got interested in the Kansas City area. And so I did more research, and then people started contacting me. So I've got over 160 reports now in a book I wrote about it called Winged Aliens, but also I did a Google map for winged creatures, winged cryptid creatures, and putting these sightings in that, and they're from all over the world. So let's start with the Mothman idea. How did the two of you get interested in that subject?
How did we get interested in that subject? I guess it started with me. I saw the movie The Mothman Prophecies in 2003, about a year after it came out. This is back when you had to go to the DVD store and rent movies. And I had a copy of it and was watching it, and it was a very interesting movie. It caught my attention. I enjoyed it. I didn't feel like it was an awesome movie, but the story was excellent. And at the end of it, when the Silver Bridge collapsed, and then you come to find out that this is actually a story that's based in real events, that really resonated with me. And after the movie was over, I was just really excited about it. It took me a little while before I went out and got John Keel's The Mothman Prophecies book. But after I got that book, it's like the floodgates just opened up. I got the audio book. I listened to that on a regular basis. And I just started collecting all of John Keel's work, all of Gray Barker's work, and just really kind of went to town, just learning as much as I could, because to me, it's the most interesting of all paranormal phenomena. And because it touches on so many different things, there's never a dull moment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's for sure. And I think a lot of us got interested in Mothman with the Mothman Prophecies film that was made with Richard Gere. Of course, come to find out, it's not exactly the truth, and they take license with things to make a Hollywood deal. But the gist of it was real. Jaci, you do a lot of data analysis, and you've studied this for some time. Is it your opinion that the Mothman is a real creature?
I don't know how to answer this really. My opinion is that there's definitely something going on that's paranormal or cryptid. I don't, cryptid I guess is paranormal, but I have, like, over the years changed my opinion of what I thought Mothman might be. I originally thought that Mothman was probably an experiment from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and they were using the West Virginia and the Ohio River Valley to do their experimentation with flying men.
Mm-hmm.
And since going to Point Pleasant and doing more research and talking to people, I really, in my heart of hearts, believe that Mothman is either a transmogrification or something that's slipping in and out of the veil, something that some of us get to see and some of us don't get to see.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably where I lean more than anything, is that it's a being that is presenting itself and then leaving or whatever. I don't know how to say it other than that.
Yeah, I completely understand that. What is your opinion on that, Bill?
So I've spent a lot of time researching Keel, and I just find him fascinating. He was light years ahead of his time in terms of research. He really kind of debunked the whole idea with extraterrestrials that they really were specifically nuts and bolts type constructs, and said they were more psychic phenomena, or like Jaci talks about, craft that slips in and out of the veil. So in carrying that a little bit further, when he investigated the flap in 66 and 67 in the Ohio River Valley, he never did get a chance to actually encounter a Mothman. But the people who did encounter a Mothman came at it with various descriptions. Some said that it was like a black type of a being that looked like it had bright red eyes. Others said that it was gray. Its skin was gray. Some said it was brown. Some said it was just a big bird. but there were different descriptions. But the interesting thing, the people that we've talked to in Point Pleasant the last 7 or 8 years have said that, hey, if it really was a flesh and blood type thing, we are a state of avid hunters. So the men hunt, the women hunt, the kids hunt. We would have shot this thing by now. So he didn't believe. And I guess my thought is, like Jaci said, it's something that kind of comes at our perception along the lines of our belief systems, or as a transmogrification of energy, meaning, if I have a Judeo-Christian type mindset, I'm going to see it in a certain way, and maybe somebody of a different background is going to perceive it as something different. But I do think it's something that's energetic, maybe spiritual in nature, that goes, into different dimensions that we can't really physically follow. At least we're not conscious of how to do that.
I'll tell you what, that's my opinion as well, that they come in and out of dimensions. Real quickly, I'll tell you about a case that's near me. There is a woman gave me a call. She said, I don't know who else to tell about this, but there was a creature in her tree outside, and it seemed to hang around the trees outside. And she wanted me to remote view it to see what the heck was going on, because it was a humanoid with wings. It was all black, and it had red glowing eyes. So I thought, okay, we're talking about a typical Mothman here. So she asked me to remote view it. And I did not see it outside. I saw it actually inside her house in a closet in her bedroom.
Oh, boy.
And that was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. I was not expecting it. And I simply asked her, I said, on the inside of your house, if you go in the front door, is there a staircase to the right? She goes, yeah. I said, then a landing and then stairs go up to the left? Yes. I said, and then you turn right and go to your bedroom, and you open the door, and there's a whole bunch of windows on the opposite side and a closet on the left. She goes, how are you doing this? I said, I'm a remote viewer, so I just want to make sure I'm in the right place, because what I'm seeing is very strange. And I need to ask you if you've seen anything in your house. She goes, yes, it hangs around the closet.
Oh, wow.
So I'm wondering if you have had any reports like that or experienced anything like that. And what do you think is going on there?
Wow. I got to tell you, I got chills when you said that. That scares the living, what, right out of me.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I want to encounter. As much as I've spent researching this thing, I don't think I'd want it inside my house. That's really, really scary. We haven't encountered Mothman or a Mothman type creature. I haven't had any experiences that I would describe as paranormal. Jaci has had some paranormal experiences throughout her lifetime, both before we met and since then. But what we have done in West Virginia several times is in Point Pleasant in West Virginia, right at the confluence of the Kanawha and the Ohio rivers. We conducted a ghost box session, and we got some really interesting feedback there.
Oh.
And we also did one across the river on the other side in Gallipolis, Ohio, in a building, and we kept getting Indrid cold. I kept getting Indrid cold hits like 4 times, and I was under for like an hour, which is a long time to be doing a ghost box session. And then in Charleston, West Virginia, we did a couple different sessions which had lights out, off the charts type paranormal activity that was just crazy. But in terms of specific Mothman that you could actually definitively say that, I saw this, or this is what I got from the vibe that I picked up, I didn't collect that personally.
How about you, Jaci? Do you and Bill always go on these investigations together?
Yeah, typically. I mean, I've done some without him, but usually we're together on them. He didn't go. I went to Parkersburg. We did a spirit box session in Robinson Woods in Chicago because of the Mothman sightings in Chicago. And that led us to, there's a lot of correlations or synchronicities or whatever you want to call it between 13 and 31. So the question was asked, what does 13 and 31 have to do with the Mothman? And the answer that came through the spirit box was a place to go visit. So I went with a friend to Parkersburg, because in Parkersburg, in a suburb very close, the closest you could get to Parkersburg, is an intersection of 13 and 31. So we went there and did a ghost box session. And that ghost box session is the one that literally took us to the point in Point Pleasant. We got things like a casket, a park, an obelisk, bones, all kinds of weird stuff. And so when we got back home, Bill had never done the spirit box session before that. And so we were telling him, and I'm like, we need to do it at the point, because that's where corn stalks, 5 bones lay. And there's 2 obelisks in that park. So one thing led to another. And so once he saw how it worked and the confirmations he was getting, I was the one that was under, then he was more open. I think he thought it was evil, but he was more open to doing them. And now he sees how paranormal activity really occurs. I think that when you're searching it out, it starts searching you out. So
it does. Yeah. Once you go down that rabbit hole, right?
Yes.
So from the beginning of your studies to now, has your opinion changed on anything?
Me, yes. It's changed. It has changed in so many ways, because, I used to see, I'm pretty logical, and I see things kind of black and white, and I did. And now, because I see how the paranormal phenomenon can actually play with you, things are more gray. Things are way more gray. And I really do think that things come to us in a way that we can understand it. I did have one thing when I was a child where my sister and brother and my other sister and my cousins were playing softball out in the side yard. And there was a bean field to the west. And we saw this big thing, just coming through the field like this. And you couldn't see anything other than the shape. And it was like squared off kind of thing. Every one of us still remember that to this day as the exact same thing. We all remember the way it shaped, the way it walked, and everything. But other than that, I think that we all get something different from what we're experiencing.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case. You can have a bunch of people together and they each see something a little different. Sometimes they see the same thing, which is rare, like you said. Mm-hmm. And so you had paranormal experiences going back to childhood then?
Yes.
Okay. And how about you, Bill? Did you have paranormal experiences when you were a kid?
I really haven't, nothing that I recall. And up until the last 10 or 15 years, I would have been the more right-brained one, where Jaci was more the left-brained one. And like she said, she's more analytical, and I've been more open to extreme possibilities. But I've never experienced anything of a paranormal nature. But once I got into graduate school and with the job that I have, both things require a lot of methodology that's really rigid and structured. And I started kind of approaching life more from a left brain perspective. And Jaci started going with her intuitive side. So we've flip-flopped, but still neither from the right brain or the left brain have I ever really experienced anything paranormal. But I remain fascinated. And I don't know that I necessarily need to personally experience something to believe it. I do believe there's all kinds of activity that I can't pick up. I've watched Jaci actually do it. I've stood right next to her and seen her perceive UFOs, and I can't see them. So I know there's something to it, but I've not experienced anything personally at all.
And me getting very mad because he wouldn't see them. It's like, how can you not see them?
I know.
Except what's and Jaci corrected me on this just a couple days ago when I said what I just said, because this keeps slipping. We just built a new house last year. And in the backyard, I noticed what looked like a woman walking across the backyard. And then I got up to go see what was going on, because we have a fenced-in yard, and that would be somebody trespassing. Mm-hmm. There was nobody out there at all. And I told her about it. And since we've moved in here, we had some strange things occur also that I think we've pretty much ruled out what the cause is now, except for one, and that's something that we call ghost barking. We have a couple of lab puppies. They're both 15, 16 months old now. But when we first moved in, we heard dogs barking inside of our house that were not them. They're coming from the other side of the house. Our dogs were asleep, and they weren't hearing it. They were not reacting whatsoever, but we both heard it. It really freaked us out.
Okay. So a few minutes ago, you said you didn't have any paranormal experiences, but it sounds like you do. And your house is haunted. I can tell you that. I'm looking at it right now.
Do you feel it?
Yeah, I see a woman. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now she's not evil or anything. She's just there.
Is she in the basement behind him?
Did she what?
Is she in the basement behind him?
Oh, yeah, she is right now. Yes.
Oh my God.
No, I'm kidding.
Are you able to see anything else? Because we had some very strange stuff happen that Bill apparently has forgotten about.
Yeah, I keep blocking it out.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that happens too. When we're done with the show, maybe tomorrow or something, I'll do remote viewing for you and get into it deep, because I'm just real superficial right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Now, there is something weird going on here. There's a weird whistling sound coming from one of you, from one of your mics, and I don't know if Race can tell which one it is, or what. But do you either of you know what that is?
I heard something too. I don't know where it's coming from, and I've never had any problems with my computer since we've been doing interviews, and we've done quite a few of them. So I'm not sure what that might be.
Yeah, there's something going on. It's not happening right now, but if it does again, I'll let you know. Okay. Yeah, we've got a couple minutes here before the break. Tell us a little bit about how you got interested in the Mothman Festival and when you first started going.
You want to take that, honey?
There it is. There.
I hear it now. I'll mute myself and let her talk.
It might be my computer doing that. I'm not sure. The Mothman Festival, I've always wanted to go. I love large groups of people, and I feed off of the energy of people. Bill's totally opposite. He gets wiped out from being around people. He picks up everything. And I pick up stuff too, but for some reason I get more energized from it. And so when I mentioned since probably 2017 that I wanted to go to the Mothman Festival, because every year we watched it getting bigger and bigger and bigger, he's like, no, I'm not doing it. So the Mothman Festival, we did not go to until last year when we actually presented and we released our book for the Mothman Festival. And it was unbelievable. I was doing a TikTok live video several times throughout the festival. But I said at one point, there's got to be 20,000 people here. And this is little tiny Point Pleasant, a town of 4,000 people. And I think they estimated anywhere between 15 and 25,000. It's hard to really know. But it's really a lot of fun. It's very clean. It's very family oriented. There was all kinds of people dressed up in different costumes. There was a big alien. I was with the purchase of our book. If you wanted to MUFON journals, some of my old MUFON journals, I was selling those also. But if you bought the book, and there was this big gray alien that was walking around, and I ran over and I handed a MUFON journal and I said, please hold this so I can take your picture. But yeah, lots of really good presenters are there. There's hay rides where they take you out into the TNT area, and there's always a guaranteed flyby of a Mothman out there, and they just do all kinds of really fun stuff.
Oh, wow. All right. That's here's a couple of pictures I grabbed. The world's only Mothman Museum. That is in Point Pleasant. And you said what? That's a town of about 4,000 people?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that whistling sound is coming, I think, from your end, Jackie.
Yeah.
And do you hear it?
It's like my computers. I need a new computer. I apologize. It's kind of winding.
I've never heard a computer do that before, but okay. And then a couple of these. Now, they just had the festival September 19th and 20th. Do they do that at the same time every year?
It's always the third weekend of September. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here's this giant statue. Do you think that's an accurate representation, Bill and Jackie, of the Mothman that people saw?
It really isn't, Margie. What that is Bob Roach was the sculptor who created this, 20 some odd years ago now. And he used the cover of the Mothman Prophecies, one of the versions of it that were released, I think, I don't think it was the original version, maybe the one that was released in 1991. That was taken from a Frank Frazetta rendition of what Mothman looks like, the Hollywood version of Mothman. So nobody reported Mothman looking anything like this, but that thing really looks cool.
All right. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. Okay, well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Bill and Jackie's book. And so this is Margie K. We'll be right back after this.
In the heart of Nebraska, a paranormal disturbance has been uncovered. As this mystery unfolds, strange objects are discovered.
What do you get from it?
I feel a real demonic energy off of it, but I also feel more than demonic, it's just plain evil.
And there was a creepy door down there that was painted on with spots and different types of patterns. It just didn't seem right.
And contact is made.
It just touched me on the back of the neck.
Will the spirits of Blue Hill be set free? Or will they be trapped for eternity? It's almost here, ladies and gentlemen. The UNX Network Year 2 anniversary at XCon 2023. XCon is being held this year from October the 30th to November 1st at the beautiful Oasis Hotel and Conference Center in Springfield, Missouri. Top speakers include host of America Unearthed, Scott Walter, plus Haley Ramsey, Sev Talk, UNX's very own Maureen Richmond and Dan Terry, Mindy Toutfest, Harriet McFeely, Forrest Crawford, and many more. And they're all coming to deliver new information on topics like UFOs, alien encounters, cryptids and ancient secrets, and real hauntings from the afterlife. Join us for the film premiere of A Haunting in Blue Hill. And don't miss the Mad Hatter Paranormal Halloween Bash, Banquet, and Costume Contest on All Hallows Eve, October 31st. So join us as we close out the 2023 conference season. Info and tickets are available now at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com, and we'll see you there.
Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. And we're back with the next news. I'm your host, Margie K. And this evening I have Bill and Jaci Kusalas. And we're going to talk about the book that they wrote right now. This one, Bridging the Tragedy, Silver Linings in the Mysterious Ohio River Valley, and it's illustrated. So tell us about the book. What was your inspiration for this?
In a name, the inspiration for the book is a lady by the name of Carolin Harris. So back in 2016, Jaci and I needed to take a vacation. And so she asked me, where would you like to go? And I said, Point Pleasant. She said, okay, let's go to the Serpent Mound too. And so we went to the Serpent Mound first in Peoples, Ohio. And then we hightailed it up to Point Pleasant, and we arrived in Point Pleasant on Friday, a little bit after 5 o'clock. Everything shut down. So 7 years ago, there wasn't nearly as much activity in Point Pleasant as there is today. These days, there's something going on almost every day of the week, 365 days out of the year. People are traveling from all over just, to see Mothman and the statue and check out the museum and go to the TNT area. But when we arrived in town, nothing was going on. And Jaci looked into a restaurant and said that there was a little lady who was looking out of the window, and she said she looked like she wanted us to talk to her. And I said, well, let's just walk around and see what else is going on around town. She said, no. She said she wants to talk to us. So after twisting my arm a little bit, we went in to go talk to this little lady. And it turns out that Carolin Harris is the co-founder of the Mothman Festival. And as we spoke with her a little bit, she looked familiar. We had seen her on documentaries. She said she'd been on 16 or 17 documentaries, Monsters and Mysteries, and different programs. And then she shared with us that she lost her son in the Silver Bridge disaster. So we just were really immediately drawn to Carolin. We just loved her. She was such a sweet, kind lady. And even though she had this terrible tragedy happen in her life, losing her 3-year-old son, she still welcomed people into town. She'd talk about the Mothman. She didn't want to discuss the bridge disaster, so we left that alone. But we went to her restaurant every day for the week that we were in town. I guess it was maybe 4 days. We went there every day, had lunch, had dinner, pop, whatever it was, just to visit with her, because we got such a feeling from her. It's like she was family. Now, after we came back home, I don't know that I thought we'd ever really go back to Point Pleasant, but I told Jaci, I said, I'd like to call Carolin. She'd given us her phone numbers. And on Christmas Eve, I said, why don't we give her a call? And, maybe she'll let me write her story. And I think Jackie's like, yeah, right. Like, she said she doesn't want to talk about that, but I figured maybe she'd open up to me. And the next day, our friend Mark, who we met with Carolin in the restaurant, sent us a message on Facebook and said Carolin had had a heart attack. And then the next day, Carolin passed away. So within a span of 2 days, we talked about seeing if she'd be interested in letting us interview her. Then she had a heart attack, and then she was gone. So we got a hold of Jeff Wamsley, who runs the Mothman Museum. We'd met him on our first trip too, and really just wanted to know where we could contribute a little bit to her memorial fund. And he told us, if you send me a check, then I'll take it to the memorial and we'll take care of that, and blah, blah, blah. Now, in 7-8 months later, when I was still in graduate school at the time, we had a residency that we had to attend in Arlington, Virginia. And Point Pleasant is kind of on the way back from Arlington. So I asked Jaci if she thought Jeff would get together with us for dinner. And she said, why don't you ask him, not me? So I sent him an email and he said, sure. And really what happened, Margie, as a result of us getting to know Jeff, really caring so much for Carolin, knowing what she experienced, that when it was time to start working on a book, Jaci had come up with an idea. Why don't you talk about post-traumatic growth? Because that's a concept that I was researching a lot of for my dissertation. She said, what about post-traumatic growth and paranormal experiences? Well, we kicked that around for about a year till we finally came up with the idea of doing that research based upon the Silver Bridge disaster. Carolin was the inspiration for that.
Wow. That's also amazing to me still. I mean, this happens all the time, but there are no coincidences, I don't believe. And for you to make these contacts, and then of course, Jaci, she sensed that she wanted to talk. She knew she was using her spidey sense to figure that out. So that's really good that you made that connection. With all the times that you've been back there, Jaci, how many people do you think you've talked to that were actually witnesses to something paranormal?
Oh boy. I would have to say probably like 20, just to throw it out there, 20 or 30. Well, I don't
Okay.
even, it's really hard to estimate because some people flat out think that nothing happened at all, and other people are still experiencing paranormal stuff to this day. And I'm thinking, like at the festival and all the stories that you hear, and when we just go out there for interviews and hear things, and it's probably closer to 100 people. I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff going on in West Virginia.
So there's ongoing paranormal activity going on in West Virginia.
Absolutely.
Okay. That does not surprise me, because there are paranormal hotspots everywhere, and then they just seem to concentrate in one area sometimes. Do either of you have any ideas why that is?
Well, I think part of the common legend, or so to speak, has to do with the two rivers coming together. That it provides some type of a natural energy that's spiritual in nature when those two rivers come together, the Ohio and the Kanawha. Now, in addition to that, the Kanawha River itself, as it goes from Point Pleasant all the way up to Charleston, which is about 45, 50 miles, it's known as the River of the Dead, because the natives would bury their ancestors on the banks of the river all the way up through Charleston. So you have all types of bodies that are buried there. There's also the Chief Cornstalk curse, which is debated as to whether or not there's anything legitimate about that. But Chief Cornstalk was the principal chief of the Shawnee and the Mingo tribes back in the 1770s. And in trying to negotiate peace with the settlers, ended up in a skirmish, was taken prisoner, and then was executed along with a couple family members. And the legend states that in his dying breath, he cursed the land and said it wouldn't prosper for 200 years. So there's also that end of things too. And again, like I said, I'm pretty skeptical that happened for various reasons. But we met also at Carolin's Diner, Lynn Robinson, who is Chief Cornstalk's seventh fire granddaughter. So 7 generations removed from Chief Cornstalk. And she told us that no native would ever curse the land. She said, but when you go out to the TNT area, bring gifts with you. She said, bring some tobacco with you. So she crushed a couple cigarettes into a box and said, take this out with you. And then to the north, east, west, and south, drop a pinch of it and just offer it as a gift, because you have 3 communal native burial grounds right there in the TNT area, which is where Mothman was really, that was known to be his haunt in 66 and 67. So, there's a real native element to things. There's the burial aspect, the rivers coming together. There's a lot of lore out there.
Now, I know that there are sightings of this Mothman creature, which in my opinion maybe should have been called Batman because it has bat-like wings, and didn't really look like a moth. But are people seeing it during the daytime and at night?
There were reports of daytime sightings and nighttime sightings in Point Pleasant in 66 and 67. Tom Urey, who was the manager of a shoe store, as he was driving in his car, saw what he described as a very large bird. And it was in the morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning. Connie Carpenter, who was a young lady, 18 years old, on her way home from church back in 66 or 67, she saw a Mothman in the broad daylight. So there were daytime, sightings of Mothman in addition to the nighttime ones. I think nighttime was a lot more prevalent. That's what Keel reported on primarily, were the nighttime sightings, but there were others that took place during the day as well.
We've had the same thing here. There have been daytime sightings as well. And I've noticed that there are clusters of sightings started with Point Pleasant, then Chicago, then Kansas City. So it seems to me that they're kind of moving west, a general westerly direction, following rivers, because there are rivers that go from both of those places all the way down through Kansas City. And so I've just made an observation that there are rivers involved, there are large bodies of water involved, and bridges. And in Kansas City, in the Independence area, we have a bridge that crosses the Missouri River. There's been a Mothman sighted near that area several times. What do you think the connection is to bridges?
Well, the way that I've kind of heard it described is that bridges represent transition. And certainly in Ohio, you're going from the state of West Virginia to Ohio when you're crossing over. And I want to say, maybe did the bridge you just described, does that go over the border of a different state as well?
No, it doesn't. It's
Okay.
it's in Missouri.
But you are basically traversing one area to get to the next and going
Yes.
across a natural waterway, which, I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but it just seems that there's a certain energy flow, obviously, with the current that goes through there. And as we talked about with the Kanawha River being the valley or the river of the dead, that you've got all these different bodies here which transmit spiritual energy. I don't know if that's the case in the other rivers as well, too, but this entire country was settled by natives in the past. And maybe that energy is residual and left over and has something to do with what's going on here.
Jaci, do you have any intuitive insights into that?
Well, the only thing I can really think of is something I learned when I was in Point Pleasant. The Water Panther tribe, there's a Water Panther stone in 2ND Way, the park at the Point, and Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And the Water Panther tribe, Native Americans, that was their stone. And what I learned from that was the Thunderbird and the Water Panther are like enemies, and Thunderbird rules the air. And if you think about a Mothman, it's huge like a Thunderbird. And then the Water Panther rules the underworld, the under the water world, and also copper. And the one thing that I thought of with the bridge in Point Pleasant was of the cars on the bridge and all of the copper that was in the cars. And that maybe all these weird things that are happening in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, because that's not the first tragedy that they've had, that maybe there's this ongoing battle with the Thunderbird and the Water Panther. And the Water Panther literally won that battle by pulling all of the cars with the copper down into the water from the Thunderbird, because there was supposedly a sighting of the Mothman near the bridge at the time it went down. And so if there is anything like that may be going on, then it wouldn't just be Point Pleasant, it would be any waterway. So there's constantly cars traveling over bridges and they're full of copper. So that could be part of it, that there's this battle because there's so much going on that we have no clue. And so there could be this battle of these two spirits that or whatever they are, that are literally fighting for rulership.
I had never heard that before. That's interesting. It makes you wonder about energies, spirit energies, and frequency, and I've often thought about the frequency and the tones of cars going over bridges, and what does that attract? There, I have another case in this area. I see your cat has come in. What's your cat's name, Bill?
Well, this is Goosey. I've got ZB off here to the left. You just can't see her.
Okay, yeah.
This is Miss Personality right here.
Mm-hmm. I love black cats. Okay. Where was I going with this?
The vibrational energy.
Yes, the vibration. Okay. Just real quick. I have another case, and this woman keeps seeing Mothman standing right in front of her, transparent, but she can fully see him. And he came in at a certain time a few weeks ago for the first time ever and stayed with her for a week and then left, and then recently came back again. And so she wanted to know why he was there. And I was drawn to remote viewing, looking at some chimes that she had outside, some wind chimes, real tall, deep tone. And I said that frequency attracted it. That's what got its attention. So I'm just thinking about the bridges out loud right now, thinking about that with that tone that's going on. And then, of course, Jackie's got that tone going on coming from her computer. Maybe that's a message. Maybe that's a message about frequency. We need to think about that. Bill, tell us a little bit more about the book and what it covers.
So what we wanted to do again is to focus on the growth and the good things that happened as a result of the terrible tragedy that was the Silver Bridge disaster. And then also we wanted to talk to people who had paranormal experiences. We encouraged them to talk about those as well. So the goal was to focus on a psychological concept known as post-traumatic growth, the good things that we get as a result of going through very challenging, difficult circumstances. And we designed a couple of research questions around those. And the idea is just to have conversations with people to get their experience of what things were like for them before the Silver Bridge collapse, during the collapse, and then after the collapse. And then we use the same sequence of questions for paranormal phenomena associated with Mothman. And that could be Mothman, the lights in the sky. There was all kinds of UFO activity that was going on. At the same time, there were men in black that were reported. There were cattle mutilations. There was all kinds of stuff. So we just kind of put that underneath a naming convention we just called Mothman-related phenomena as it relates to the Ohio River Valley in 66 and 67, because we wanted to be specific to that flap. So we selected a handful of people. Mark Griffith, who was the guy that I was talking about earlier, who contacted us that we met at Carolin's restaurant, and he contacted us when Carolin passed away. He was the first volunteer for the study. And then he said, I've got my friend, his name is Rick Handley. I've known him since I was a kid. And if you reach out to him, request him as a friend on Facebook, and then I'll tell him that you're looking to do this book and blah, blah, blah. So Rick Handley volunteered also. And then we contacted some people in the community who are kind of Mothman related folks in the first place. We got a hold of Jeff Wamsley. We didn't ask Jeff if he wanted to be part of the book, but we asked him if he knew some people who would be interested in being part of the book. And he kind of scratched his head and he wasn't sure who he could recommend, but he said, why don't you talk to my daughter? And then his daughter, Ashley, said, why don't you get a hold of Beth, who runs the newspapers in town? So we got a hold of Beth, and she ran an ad for us and didn't charge us a thing for it, put it on the front page of the Point Pleasant Register and other Ohio Valley newspapers. And long story short, we had 3 people call us from that ad. We got a hold of Andy Colvin, who's the author that we talked about earlier, and we became friends with him and asked him if he'd be interested in being part of this study. And then we also asked his friend Harriet, who is subject of some of his studies. He has a video series and a book series called The Mothman's Photographer, and she is part of a lot of that. They grew up together in Charleston, West Virginia. So long story short, we had 11 volunteers. We interviewed them between June and January, June of 2021 and January of 2022. And we got all their information. We transcribed their interviews, and then we applied a methodology that's known as grounded theory. And what this is it's a qualitative way to take conversational interviews and pull data out of them instead of using statistics and using numbers. So it's all based upon personal experience. And so we ran that through the grounded theory process, which I'll spare you the details on, but it's pretty methodical and took a long time, a couple of months to process all that data. And by the end of it, then we came up with dimensions of post-traumatic growth that were things that the community of Point Pleasant and the bridge disaster experiencers and the Mothman related experiencers talked about that they actually grew from.
Jackie, did any of the people say that their psychic abilities were increased after that event or during it?
Yeah. 2 people, but they were from Charleston, West Virginia, Mound, West Virginia, which is another thing, mound, Indian burial mounds. So they had increased psychic abilities, and they had also increased IQ. So they were children. And one of them actually was, there was three kids that hung out together on the street, and one of them's name was Tommy. He was not interviewed, but Andy was his best friend, and Harriet was the best friend. And Andy and Tommy made a shrine to Mothman in a tool shed. and they used creepy crawlers and things like that to do so. But Tommy was telling Andy about a vision that he had, and he told him he could see it too. And he pulled him over by the tool shed, and he told him to touch him on the arm, and he touched him on the arm. And when he did, he saw a vision of the Twin Towers coming down. And this is 1967.
Oh.
And he didn't realize it was the Twin Towers coming down until it actually happened when he was an adult. So they had, yes, really, truly increased psychic abilities. I mean, off the charts stuff, and UFO activity and all kinds of other stuff was occurring there too.
And does that continue for these witnesses today?
Harriet is extremely psychic, and Andy is too. He doesn't seem to like. He's different. He's psychic differently. I don't know how to describe it, but he's more so like laid back. He's not like Harriet's more like I am, like she's, like, kind of. And, but Andy, he just kind of sits back and you just kind of have to watch him, and then you'll see something click and then he'll talk about it. So yeah, it continues.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know there were a lot of other things going on at that time, like that, for instance, the UFO sightings. Can you talk about that a little bit? What were people seeing?
Well, Harriet told us that her brother had a UFO land in his yard. And she said he wasn't the kind to make things up. So she believed him. She didn't see anything. But Denny Bellamy, who is another guy who is a Point Pleasant local who we interviewed, he is the Mason County Visitors and Convention Bureau executive director. He talked about having seen a UFO over the Ohio River. And now he told us later on that when Desert Storm happened, he saw his UFO that he had seen back in whenever it was, the 70s or the 80s. He said he saw it again on TV as it was bombing Iraq. And so what he thought was that some of the planes came over from Wright-Patterson Air Force, and they would do like runs in West Virginia because it's so dark, and they could do all kinds of stuff over there. So that's what he said. But Linda Lane, who we interviewed, also saw a UFO in 67. Going up the Ohio River as she and a date were going up to, I think she said Pomeroy, Ohio. They were headed up that way, which is north of Point Pleasant. And who else told us? Did our friend at the high rise,
Charlene?
Charlene
Finch. Yeah, she thought she had seen one over her house in the subdivision of Point Pleasant.
And Harriet also told us. I mean, her encounter wasn't a Mothman encounter. Her encounter was a UFO, and she had missing time. And that was when she saw the spike in her IQ. She actually leapfrogged a couple grades in school. She has a 160 IQ. And the night that we met her on a Zoom meeting. She did the same thing that you did when you sensed that we have haunting going on here at our house. She said, "There's something wrong with you," meaning me, physically. And I said, "Well, I've got back trouble." She said, "No, I'm sensing something like diverticulitis." Within 2 days, I took my first ambulance ride to the hospital with a condition related to that.
Oh, wow.
I mean, she picks up on all kinds of vibes like that. She's really amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fascinating, and I know that you have details about all of that in your book. Where can people get a copy?
It's on Amazon. We have two different versions of the book. The one that we see right here was just released for the Mothman Festival. And this one is illustrated. It's updated. It has a foreword that was written by one of the bridge disaster victims' family members, and that's on Amazon right now. We also have last year's version, which was released for the last Mothman Festival, and that's got a gold cover on it also. But you can find it on Amazon, or you can contact Jaci and me over Facebook. We'd be happy to send you a autographed copy of either one of the versions.
Okay, the book. Bridging the Tragedy, Silver Linings in the Mysterious Ohio River Valley by Bill and Jaci Kuselos. Thank you so much, both of you, for this evening and spending some time with us. It's fascinating information.
Nice to visit with you, Margie. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. I'll be in touch with you within the next couple of days.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you for coming on the program. Everybody, I told you that I would be giving away some tickets. So here's how you do it. Send an email to kunxradio@gmail.com. Okay, kunxradio@gmail.com. And tell me what the name of the bridge is in Point Pleasant where the Mothman was sighted. Okay, first one to do that is going to get these tickets. Make sure you send me your name, address, and of course, your email will be there. This is Margie K, and I'll see you here again next week.